Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mixing with Swigs. This time we're going to be taking a little bit of a challenge and a different sort of song. We're going to be working with Chemical Plant Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, done by Guitar Geek 25 as well as Sab Irene, two friends of mine. And considering that they're coming from both rock and a bit of a different arrangement here, we're going to be looking at what I would consider to be like a bit of a harder mix to take on. So I'm not going to go super into depth of what I'm doing as far as the setup, but I have a couple lead guitar tracks here. I have several saxophone tracks, and then of course I have two rhythm guitars, and I received one direct bass recording track as well as a tone, so that might just keep some characteristics of the player's preference. Just for drums, of course, what I've got going on is the same kit as my last video, so I'll just take a look. It's a mix of the standard Avatar kit with a lot of Metal Machine replacements for the toms as well as the cymbals, so take a listen some of the parts here. So I'm going to stop right here and quickly do a few housekeeping things. So most of these tom fills are fairly different, but what I like to do is just have like a 8% humanize, and I selected the ones I wanted. I went to edit, humanize, and I'm not changing the timing, just the velocities, stuff that makes it sound way more human, especially with hi-hats. I like to add just a little bit of timing and go a little crazier on the velocity randomizing. Kick and snares, I will drop the timing to 0 and just give like a little bit of velocity change. We don't want it to sound like a robot, but we also don't want it to, you know, when you're playing with samples, sometimes if you don't express them loud enough, you don't get the full impact. So it does make sense to program some of these pretty high up. Now, I'm going to go quickly over what's running, but I don't want to explain every single video if I haven't changed too much. So, compression and EQ for the kick. Alright, that's fine. Another thing is the snare, which is my worst enemy right now, so. Bit of light compression. Now the thing to understand about how compressor works again is when the volume reaches your threshold for your ratio, for every 2.53 decibels of volume going in, we allow the overall volume to come out 1 decibel greater, so it's reducing by that much. And the speed at which we work to push down these spikes and transients is the attack, so less attack means we'll hear more of the snappiness, and a fast release means it comes back. So if we want aggressive drums, if we want rock and sort of funk friendly. We don't want to kill the dynamics here. Now I also have FabFilter Saturn. Basically any tube saturator is going to add harmonics and digital sort of simulation as if it was coming through. Let's try tape actually. I think that's pretty okay. Overheads are very similar as usual. We're just gonna try to bring maybe a bit of the low end. And this is of course where I find some of the cymbals get in the way of the melody, so gotta kill that. You can hear a difference. So there's that. And then of course I've got a fairly compressed hi-hat. We're gonna use it in this song. It's very important for funk. And I'm just gonna quickly check the MIDI here. And the hi-hat pedal never went down, so I like having that closure. So that's a little more acceptable. The toms are the same as last time. The individual ones have been routed into here with just minimal EQ, and what we're looking at is control the low end, get a little bit of the tack. I'm gonna bring that down a lot more. And they're fairly compressed at a ratio of 4.48, I'm finding, and slow attacks, so you can still get a little bit of the spikes here, so it stands out. We also have some parallel compression going on. Not super important, but it does give out some of that ringy, natural sound instead of So yeah, the drums are gonna sound like that. Now, for whatever reason, I'm gonna work with the bass, but I'm gonna turn up the rhythm guitars. They don't need too much work, so I like to mix with them in. So right now what we have is a dry amp, a dry track just straight in, an amplified, and a dirty one. So if we look over here, let's play with the dry one. I'm gonna add some compression and EQ. Now you'll notice that with the other bass tracks, we're gonna have more sub bass coming from the DI and even a little bit the amp. So I'm gonna focus all my efforts to EQ this area, bring this out, cut off the highs. Yeah, I don't like that. Oh. Where'd my node go? find a better section. I'm gonna aggressively cut off this bottom side just so that we don't have any boominess. Since the guitars are gonna come in around here, I don't want to cause any clashing, so we're gonna take that out. Alright, now we're gonna add a compressor to the dry. And this is gonna be to really control the volume here, but since there's so much funk, we'll use like a modestly slow attack at first. Let's go. Alright, I like that. Now what's going on with my amped bass is I ran it through bias effects through my channel that has a clean amp and then another dry. We can kind of mix this around a little. So this one definitely is already pretty compressed, so I'm gonna just add an EQ and see how that sounds first. The high end is way stronger here. So let's do a high pass. What we're gonna do with this is try to saturate and meet like where the guitars are coming in, basically. Nice blend. So the guitars are obviously sitting here, so this is the crossover point where I want to give some space. Alright, that's fine. Now for the rhythm guitars, I'm gonna leave their tones as is, if we just listen now. So they're very crunchy, pretty compressed. So we're just gonna try to darken it to make space for the leads and saxes without actually killing the vibe. So we can see a lot of bass accumulation here, and to get a clearer mix, we can't just have everything be about bass. That being said, I would rather it be a dark mix than an overly bright mix. So that should clear up a fair amount. I'm not in love with how it sounds yet. It's because we need the other instruments, right? So I'm gonna tackle sax. No, I'm going to tackle leads because the leads are gonna be kind of important here. So first things first, let's listen to what we got and how we can place it. Now, this arrangement is such that the guitars are mostly back and forth with saxophone parts, so I want to make sure those could be opposite. I'm gonna add a delay. See. Let's see. Just for the noise. So now what I'm going to do is try to EQ to where everyone plays together, but nobody's too separate to sound. We don't want them to sound part of like all individualized, but we don't want to overstep boundaries. One thing we want to avoid is over tinny guitars, which comes from amp sims always being very tinny for some reason. I might also add a reverb separately to this MAME guy, because actually, no. I will send the appropriate reverb later. We'll work on that later. We'll add delay to him too. I also want to get rid of too much noise from before and after, so let's go trim. So this comes from having more gain and not too much of a noise gate. So it's always important to try to record as clean in between. But sometimes you don't want to kill it. This is just gonna... crap. This is gonna clear up a lot of the noise that we're hearing. And ultimately leads to a cleaner mix. There we go. I'm working on the railroad. Alright. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was a note. Alright, so I'm probably going to fast forward through a lot of this, just because this doesn't seem that entertaining. This one has a better noise gate, so that's fine. So, like the point with vocals or anything, you want to be able to hear it, it's the main focus, you don't want to take away from that. Alright, so now that we have the EQ, I like to add just a little bit of compression to, and we're going to start really, really light, just so that we can control the volume. Oh, and I do apologize, I forgot. On the rhythm guitars, for now at least, I'm going to add an imager. Actually, let's use the MDA one. And what this does is space out the guitars just a little better. Now they're sitting in such a way that we really can avoid overstepping boundaries. Okay, now the moment everyone's waiting for, let's get on with the sax. I'm gonna kill the leads this time. So these are very clean recordings. So what we're gonna do is probably, I think I might start with basic EQ over the whole thing, just so that we don't compress everything and then want to change the tone of everything later. And I'm being very generous here, because I wanna not ruin the tone of anything here. The sax pretty much should not be ruined by other instruments. And I'm gonna add a compressor to the whole bus, just to see if I can magically get them to all sit inside. But I'll probably have to throw in some other friends here. So that one's at 16. Let's see how we feel about like 17. Or let's go 23. No, let's go closer to inside because it's a bassier instrument. All right, so let's go. And I'm gonna add a tape saturation to the whole thing, and we're gonna have warm tape, and I'm gonna listen to this soloed. Now we're getting some of the key sound, which is kind of neat. And now we're gonna expand this sax too, because our lead guitar is sitting somewhere 36. Okay, we have some space. And I'm gonna make these a little far out. Let's try 41. I don't want to go overboard. And the delay is just to add a little bit of thickness. Oh. Just based on the parts, like the sax 5 coming in. Actually, what I'm gonna do is, for simplicity's sake, I'm gonna cut the sax 5 and put it on the sax 3, because that's the role it ends up playing. So might as well. You might as well simplify when you can, in my opinion. Just don't screw up, 'cause that'd be bad. Okay, now we don't even need to worry about this. Now, one thing I'm going to do that might seem a little odd is I'm going to experiment with a gate. Let's just get Reaper's noise gate 8. And I need to put it in front of the compressor because I'm trying to cut off the random key noises the fastest way possible. And of course the solo is at the end, so we can cut off stuff here and here. That's fine. Yeah. And I want it to be really smooth. It's only cutting off way there. We're gonna add delay on this guy, the solo. And so now the guitar solo also needs to stand out a bit. Basically, a lot of what I'm doing is balancing and placing to where nobody steps on the other person's foot. So what I'm gonna do now to like tie up a lot of stuff is I'm gonna add the reverb tracks, and the first thing I'm gonna do is send my basic, but not the kick drum, parts to the regular reverb, which is like a room reverb. I'm gonna take that off because that just screwed up my beautiful mixer. So and I'm gonna change this to like a medium-sized room. And I'm gonna try to add the saxophones here. And this is like a more extreme reverb, so let's add leads. Oh, that was a weird sound. Alright, let's get rid of that. Alright, and then... Oh, and apologies, I never compressed the bass here, so let's do that now. I'm gonna try to keep it a little more respectful. Actually, no, we'll just make it higher. So maybe even like mix in a little raw. And we're gonna send the kick to the bass by receiving, as you saw me do there. We're gonna change the way it sends by going to track 3 and 4, and we're gonna sidechain compress just a little bit. I know we probably don't need to, but it's just become a little bit of a tradition. So let's listen in. So, just a little bit of dB loss, that's fine. Just not bassy enough. course, we have a snare reverb, just to give it a little punch. Let's get to this. Try this. Alright, 40 minutes. 40 minutes, that's fine. Alright, so let's start playing with the mix as a whole. So we're going to go to our master chain, and first thing we're going to do, equalize the whole thing just carefully. In compressor and try to get this song sounding as tight as possible. Let it breathe, you know, because of the saxes, of course. So what I'm really watching for is the amount of volume loss, and I need to turn that down now, and just turn up my volume so I don't clip. Basically, I'm trying not to lose too much volume here, but I am trying to lose it in certain bands. So my baseband is where I want to kill all the muddiness, but just carefully. Kind of want to get back a little bit of the body, so I'm going to raise that. So to explain what I'm doing, I'm creating 4 bands to control different amounts of tape saturation on, which is how much drive I have, and each of these is kind of like a perfect fourth of each of these. So it's like super precise. Alright, so now we've got the tape saturation. Now we're going to stretch out the song a little bit. want to remove some of the click because, you know, it's not hardcore metal. Now, of course, the last step really is to add a limiter that will push it. I like to do -2. I've noticed this one's been kind of lonely. Let's go with the JS one, why not? I'm used to this one more. Render this out. I'm gonna take a good few listens. I'm doing this voiceover later, so I realize now that the song is missing one little part at the very end, but besides that, I'm pretty happy with the mix. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are interested in having me mix one of your video game cover songs for the series, send me a message on Twitter or on my Facebook page, facebook.com/swigglesrp. Besides that, just stay tuned. Hopefully you guys learned a little something. I learned a little bit of something. And enjoy the song when it comes out.